name and your piece?
Hello guys, I'm Michael, and I'm going to be playing Improvisational by Sarasate.
And are you from this high school?
I'm from this high school, so got my friends out there.
Okay. You want to tune up? Okay, wonderful job. But the first thing I have to say is that how you usually bow?
Well, I'm not used to bowing for master classes, I guess.
Okay, well, don't bother to clap again, but just show me a normal bow. Okay, good. Just want to make sure you know what you're doing. All right. Well, yeah, wonderful, wonderful job. A few tiny things before we get into some bigger concepts. Okay, so you saw what I just did. I seemed like I was going to say something, but then I didn't. Well, that's exactly the feeling we get when your bow is here and then you don't play. So, before the piece begins, or if you have a rest and another section hasn't started yet, violin up, bow down.
Okay.
Okay, and then, so you start at the beginning and just up, even the tip down. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So keep your sword sheathed and then draw it out of the scabbard and you're ready to go. Okay, and then also finish your sentences. So the first one that really struck me, this exclamation point, and then take a breath. Unlike singers and wind players, we never have to stop and take a breath. We can just keep singing and singing and singing, but and sometimes that's what the music wants. It wants us to do something extra human and not have the phrase length that would be limited by our breath. But in a case like this, then we can end up with a run-on sentence. So actually start from the beginning, just where you come in, da-da-da-dum. Now finish. Yeah, so right, so finish in the character that you did the whole sentence.
Okay.
So dum, so play me that last note. Now you can change moods. Right, okay, then the other place that really needs to happen also is on the end of the middle section.
Okay.
It was almost like you were thinking ahead to the allegro, and after you had this beautiful, beautiful, soft, slow, very still, gentle playing, then your last note ended like it was starting to be exciting, and I don't think you meant to do that. So just start from da-da-da-da. And just bow, still. Now, right. And obviously you've got to switch gears, so bum, bum, bum. So then get into the spirit of it, but just take your time, just let it settle. Okay, so that's just one
It's
little
not
thing.
Thanksgiving weekend yet, right?
I'd have to check my website to never know what the schedule is. Why, are you excited about Thanksgiving?
Dinner.
Ah, okay. Cool. All right, so let's see. In that middle section, you had a few very nice, juicy slides, and I wonder if you can do more. Gypsy...
And the slow part?
The slow part, yeah. Gypsy violin playing is so schmaltzy, and even if you listen to some of the older violinists like Perlman and that generation, or going back to like Oistrakh and that generation, and this is really that kind of playing. That really gushy, like the kind of playing you would never want to do for Beethoven or Mozart, right? But in this you can like overindulge. Speaking of Thanksgiving, just ladle on those slides, heaps of them. and experiment. Just don't worry about whether it's going to be tasteful or whether it's in a good spot. If it turns out to be yucky, who cares? Right now, just go for it. Just give us lots of slides. Yeah, but rather than backing away from him, yeah. Nice. Right, don't forget about downward slides too. All that kind of thing. Keep going. Yeah, keep going. Next phrase. Da, da, da. Right, do it. That was great. Do it one more time though, and do it not like you're thinking about doing it, but like you mean it, like it's coming from a place of inspiration.
Okay.
That's a good start. So then you want to refine that. Think about, and we don't have time to go into this in great depth, but I just want to leave you with the idea. So listen to recordings, see where people slide and which ones you like, and experiment. See how often people slide, and what seems to feel good to you. But then also when you're experimenting with what slides you want to do, two things to keep in mind. One, are you sliding on the new finger or the old finger? Generally, going up, you usually want to slide on the new finger. So you wouldn't do as much of, and more. Every once in a while, there's a special effect where but usually, all the way up, it's going to be the new finger. So just, be aware of which it is. If you were doing just a passing shift, just a shift to get you from one spot to the next, you might very well be shifting on that old finger. But actually, for an expressive slide, you might want to go with the new finger. And especially on the way down. Usually on the way down is the old finger. But just listen to how the different things sound. And then think about where your bow change occurs. Is it after the slide? Is it before the slide? Sometimes things end up sounding better than others, and it's all a question of that individual spot, but which finger is sliding on and where you put the bow change in relationship to the slide. Those are some of the factors to be very aware of. Okay, and then the next section, which you did extremely well, have a little more fun with it. Now, some of it is like fiery and just like flashy in your face. I can do left-hand pizzicatos and you can't. Which is kind of, but that's the attitude. It's this, well, tell me this, when you think of gypsy violin playing, have you ever seen a gypsy violinist?
I've seen parts of I don't remember exactly what the movie's called, but I've seen some renditions of
Okay,
but
cool.
Not extensive. Really.
Okay, so when you think of a gypsy violinist, where might, what kind of a setting might that violinist be playing in?
Like a busy street, sort of.
Okay, like a street musician. What else?
Modern day an airport, maybe. But generally someplace pretty busy, probably maybe a festival kind of thing.
Yeah, well now, the concert realm, that's a whole new thing. But more traditionally, well, you might get them in a restaurant, right? Or among their own people, around a campfire, right? So if they're playing for their friends and compatriots, they want to show off how they're the best fiddler of the bunch. If they're playing on the street or in a restaurant, they want to show off how amazing they are, so that hopefully, you'll give them enough tips to make it worth their while. So either way, they're showing off. It's a little bit different thing than Vinyavsky getting up there as the great virtuoso. This is more of a, traditional violinist, but he still needs to knock your socks off. So you have to not only nail it, but show us that you're nailing it, which you did a great job of. But now, let's add one more element. Let's have fun with it. A little, especially where it goes to major key. A little bit of a twinkle in your eye, maybe a little bit teasing, right? Okay, so start from the beginning. Yeah, a little bit of a smile. I mean, not physically because you have to hold the instrument with your jaw, but but kind of feel like you're smiling and not like you're just serioso. And don't ever get so soft we can't hear you. All right. Still project your pianos like we talked about. Okay, that's great. That's wonderful, wonderful. Well, I could listen to you all day, but we have to talk about other stuff too. That was fantastic. Yeah, so, and in fact, that's really impressive because it's one thing for a violinist to really concentrate and get all those notes. That's already a huge achievement. But if you can be such a good violinist that you don't even need to worry about the notes, you can just enjoy yourself, then that's like super impressive. Like it's so easy for you, you're just fiddling away and having a grand time. So that was awesome. When you get soft though, let's see, do your echo. Give me the feeling of an echo without being so soft that people have to strain to hear you. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So now after the introduction, and you're doing this very well, but that's sort of like catching people's attention. Because if you're about to play and you're on a busy street or you're in a restaurant and people are talking to each other, you need to catch their attention like, hey, listen up, I'm playing now, pay attention, right? So that's kind of this in-your-face opening. And then once you've got their attention, then this is where the real music starts, right? Because before it was just passage work, but now it's a real melody. But what is all of this? I mean, it's interesting that this is a piece said that it's composed by Sarasate. Sarasate did not write these melodies. These are all real gypsy melodies. He wrote this version of it and, sort of made this particular arrangement. If this were a piece made in the 21st century, we would say it was a crossover fiddle medley arranged by so-and-so. But because it's from the 19th century, we say it's composed by Sarasate, which is kind of an interesting thing to realize. But it is fiddle music. So what Sarasate's written down is a particular improvisation. A gypsy fiddler would have probably played a different version every time. Maybe he has his own particular licks that he tends to like, but he wouldn't have played them in exactly the same spots. He wouldn't have played them in exactly the same way. So you're doing some absolutely wonderful ideas of rubato with the push and pull of the ebb and flow. But what I want you to do is play it as if you're inventing it. Not only that you're pretending that you're being spontaneous with where you speed up and where you slow down, like it's like you're kind of thinking it up right at that moment, but almost like you don't even know what notes you're going to play, and then they just kind of come to you. That kind of. Have you ever done any improvisation?
A little bit.
Okay, well that's awesome. So try to pretend you're improvising, and seriously, because that's really the spirit that we have to capture. Because then, even if the audience has heard this 100 times before, they'll be like, "Oh, what's he going to do next?" Even though they're kind of singing along in their head, you still have that feeling of, "What am I going to do next?" And it makes it so much more. It draws you in. So, okay, so give us the one bar. Yeah, but don't ever get too soft. fantastic. Okay, so a couple of things. Yeah, do try to be as creative as possible. Don't ever play it the same way twice. We don't say that in classical music. We want consistency. If you're playing a Beethoven sonata, you want to practice over and over so that you can have exactly planned out what your articulations are going to be and your dynamic gradations. This is a whole different style of music. Now, that being said, you do want to have some general ideas in mind. Maybe you know, right here I'm definitely going to get faster, right here I'm definitely going to get softer. But maybe exactly how much you get faster, exactly what your color is when you get softer. All of that, you can be very experimental like you just were. And, as you're doing it, you can see what you like and what you don't like, and you're going to pretty much have it planned out, especially if you're doing it with an orchestra. Then the conductor needs to know what you're doing so that he can lead the section, and if you're being too spontaneous, then the orchestra won't be able to find you. But just what you did, so that it feels like it's so inspired. Now, because you want to be able to have the person that follows you actually be with you, you do have to show them what you're doing as you're doing it, which even when you played it through that first time, you weren't really doing. We get spoiled when we play with good accompanists like your friend here, because no matter what you do, they're going to stick with you somehow or another, so you can get away with too much. But if a conductor were trying to find you and then the orchestra were trying to follow him, they would always be late and maybe not even together, and that wouldn't be very musically effective. So what you need to do is be aware of where the pianist has certain notes, because it's only, a lot of this, every once in a while, you're playing, there's a note, playing, there's another note. The accompaniment has these certain spots where they have to know when you're going to land on that note. So, for example, don't just play and then have her just put it in there and hope she's right and have it be somewhere in the vicinity of your note. But without being so overt about it that you break up the musical flow, you still need to communicate. And there's another one. Which the gypsy player would be accompanied by his band, which might be a guitar and one of those accordion things, or one of those things that you hit with ballads, whatever it's called, that Hungarian instrument. So you'd have some kind of backup no matter what the context was. And those guys, especially if it's more than one person, would need to not only follow you, but be with each other. So start from and sometimes what you might want to do, what I'll often do, is like take a green pen or blue pencil or something and just write slash marks on those particular spots so that I know, okay, right here, and kind of memorize where all those moments. But you might already have it in your ear. You just have to do it. Okay, so from there, so something like this. You're kind of playing a melody, she's kind of playing continuously. You don't have to show her every beat because you guys are just going along. But it's where you have a bunch of gobbledygook and then she has to come in and then you have a bunch more gobbledygook. That's the spots you have to lead. Yeah, but play it musically. Yeah, one more time. This has to be sort of melodramatic. This kind of feeling. So that was just as musical and flowing, but now she was exactly with you, which she wasn't before, despite her best efforts, because you weren't helping her. Okay, great. Now the last thing I want to talk to you about is the least fun. Play for me. Well, what key is this piece?
G minor.
How many sharps or flats does G minor have? Pardon?
3 flats.
Oh no! Do you study music theory at this school?
No, but I've taken it, and I actually kind of got quiz back there. Kind of.
Okay. Anybody out here know what key 3 flats is? Oh, no. Okay, your video guy knows the answer. All right, C minor.
C minor.
Da 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 C. Right? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. That's another C.
Okay.
Yeah, C minor. All right, so give me a one on a bow, legato C minor scale. Just a 2 octave, any position, doesn't matter. Actually, let's do it in the 3rd position. Starting on C. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, just 2 octaves. Okay, so very often when we play our scales, we tend to do like medium dynamic, medium vibrato width, medium vibrato speed, kind of like any, or whatever, any old vibrato, whatever our normal, comfortable vibrato happens to be. And then you might, whatever you do scales for, whether it's getting faster and faster, multiple on a bow, clean shifts, different bowing patterns, those are usually the things we think about. But in fact, scales are a very useful way to practice tone colors. Because when you're playing a piece, you've got all the distraction of phrasing and difficult shifts and notes and whatever. But a scale is just a stupid scale. And if you're doing Debussy, you could practice a very floaty kind of pastel scale. If you're doing Sibelius Concerto, you could practice a really robust. If you're doing Mozart Concerto, you could practice a very narrow, refined vibrato. So basically, the components that you have to work with, you have soft, medium, loud, obviously there's a million gradations, but on a very basic level, soft, medium, loud. For your vibrato width, you've got wide and you've got narrow, and you've got slow and you've got fast. So the vibrato could be narrow and fast, a very intense, shimmery vibrato. It could be narrow and kind of slow, which is sort of a everyday, sort of just gentle covering of vibrato, or the kind of vibrato we might use for fast notes, just a very minimal vibrato. The narrow and fast is what we might use if there's a soft but intense passage, or maybe something high up on an upper string. Then we've got slow and wide, which is more of a rich, warm sound. And then we've got slow and fast, which is just the juiciest, hugest vibrato. And each of those 4 can be combined with each of the 3 piano, mezzo forte, or better to say pianissimo, mezzo forte, fortissimo. Now some of those 12 combinations are colors that you would use much less frequently than others. But you still want to have them all comfortable and at your disposal, so it's like having a painter standing in front of a canvas with a palette, and he can dip his brush in whatever he wants to create the shade that he's looking for at that moment. Now your vibrato, the one that you used in the scale, is obviously, because you probably weren't thinking about it, that's the one that is your fallback vibrato. A little bit narrow, right? Have you been working on trying to get it wider and a little slower? Okay, so show me that scale now with a nice, warm, rich sort of a sound. Yeah, slow down the treble. So give you a little longer on each one, like 1 and 2 and so you let each finger have a little bit more time. Yeah, that's definitely better. One more time. One more time. Okay. That's obviously doing it on somebody is not going to sound so beautiful, but that's maybe slightly too much, but it's definitely more in the right direction. And actually, sometimes it's useful in technique to do too much, because then you can always back off from there, but then you've at least gotten the thing going. Yeah, so try to just make it so wide that it's almost gross. Okay, you know what? That wasn't gross, that was awesome. See, sometimes when we do what we think is going to be too much, it's actually finally enough. That was exactly the vibrato we want for da 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 ya. All right, so now just a little bit under tempo. Give me those first few notes. Yes, thank you. That was fantastic. Now do it with an even stronger bow. Da 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 da. And when your bow gets more aggressive, don't let that impact. This is another reason to practice the various dynamics in combination with the various vibratos, because you want the two halves of your body to be independent. When your vibrato speeds up, you don't want that to force you to crescendo. When you get loud, you don't want that to force your vibrato to speed up. So accents, but a nice, slow, rich vibrato. Now it's getting there. Yeah, that's better. So give me just that second finger. Start off kind of a medium dynamic, nice and slow and rich. Now get louder, but not faster with the vibrato. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you can do it. It's just a question of doing it enough that it feels comfortable, like it can just happen without you having to really think about it and work at it. So again, scales are a useful way to do it, because then you can practice just that isolated aspect of your playing that you can then insert into your piece where needed. But definitely do take various spots in your pieces and decide which is the right. And there are definitely places where that narrow one is going to be exactly the right one, but then there are other places where that's definitely not the optimal sound. So figure out which vibrato you want and then try to work on that one and plan it out. Years later, like right now, I can actually just think, okay, I want this feeling. And my body automatically translates, okay, so therefore I have to have this kind of a weight of my bow, this kind of a bow speed. My contact point is going to be here between the fingerboard and the bridge. My vibrato is going to be this width and this speed. All those elements, I don't even have to plan to be consciously aware of them. If I think I want to have a particular emotional quality, my body automatically does that stuff. But that's because I spent so many years consciously planning it all out. It's like going from driving an automatic car to driving, going from driving a stick shift to an automatic. If you want to go into the next gear, you just press the pedal and all the innards do it and you don't even know about it. And ultimately, the good news is it will get to that point where your violin playing will just happen, but only if you put in the work on the front end.
Thank you.
All right.